Morning sunbeams pierce through the massive windows of the mansion, signaling a very special day. Tables groan under the weight of a massive feast as the aroma of roasted turkey fills the air. Everyone celebrates young Master Isaac because he secured an invitation to the Royal Academy at only 10 years old. His kind nanny brings out his favorite dishes with a huge smile since this is such a joyous occasion. This young boy looks like the perfect noble prodigy with his gentle smile and calm demeanor. Meet Isaac von Goethe, a 10-year-old genius who is already destined for greatness in this world. Suddenly a loyal servant approaches the table holding a massive gift wrapped in a beautiful red ribbon. Hans insists on giving this present to thank the boy for saving his sick son with expensive medicine. Isaac accepts the gift with grace and thanks the man for his genuine kindness. Small footsteps echo through the hall as his younger brother Jonas rushes in with a musical instrument. The energetic kid wants to play some music to celebrate his brother's success as he holds a beautiful lute. Even court musicians call this little boy a musical prodigy because his skills are truly legendary. Our main character smiles brightly and asks to hear the melody since he loves his talented brother. With a determined expression, the young Jonas nods as he prepares to perform for the entire room. Light melodies drift through the air as the strings produce a divine sound that fills the mansion. Blood and screams for a man named Jonas haunt the dark corners of his restless mind. Isaac wakes up gasping for air inside his cold and lonely room as the shadows of the night slowly recede. A small smile creeps onto his face as he realizes how foolish those old memories truly are in this new life. Snow falls over the castle courtyard as he realizes that returning to those golden days is impossible now. Steady footsteps echo through the stone hallway as someone approaches his private quarters with a purpose. Heavy wooden doors creak open to reveal a familiar face coming to check on the young master today. Lucas enters the room carrying a warm lantern and a tray filled with a hearty breakfast for the troubled noble. His eyes widen in surprise as he notices something unusual about the young man sitting on the edge of the bed. Concerned for his master, the loyal servant asks if a nightmare is the reason for his pale and ghostly complexion. Fingers press against his forehead as his mind wanders back to a time over 20 years in the past. Fresh cheese is a much better companion for the morning than dwelling on those dusty old memories. Steam rises from the delicious stew and warm bread waiting to be devoured by the hungry young master. Training sessions for the sword await him today once he finishes this meal to sharpen his skills and his body. Everything changed when a sudden flu struck him down just before he was supposed to enter the Royal Academy. Count Goethe seeks answers from a mysterious scholar after learning that his son possesses a very peculiar constitution. Every living creature enters this world carrying a natural vessel designed to hold magical energy. This young boy suffers because his mana flows with a volatile speed that no human body can actually endure. Fear becomes a cold reality as the fragile container finally shatters into countless pieces on the floor. Pure energy erupts from his chest like a massive bursting dam that destroys everything in its wake. Agony consumes his entire soul as the internal mana explosion triggers a scream of absolute terror. Shockwaves blast through the elegant room and send every servant flying against the stone walls. Blood stains the expensive carpet after the chaotic power leaves everyone in the manor paralyzed with anxiety. Tragedy strikes when the uncontrolled force destroys the right hand of his brother in a split second. Despair fills the eyes of the father as the son begs to be locked away forever to protect his family. Tears stream down his pale face since he knows his very existence is now a danger to those he loves. Isolation seems like the only way to ensure that nobody else gets hurt by his cursed magical gift. Years pass inside a dark stone cell where he records every lonely day with marks on the cold wall. The protagonist turns 15 years old as he eats dry bread in the middle of his dark confinement. Sickness begins to take hold as a heavy cough echoes through the silence of his miserable prison. Someone named Lucas stands at the door and watches the boy who has been forgotten by the entire kingdom. Blood drips through his fingers as the sickness finally takes its toll on his weak body. Constant mana poisoning is the direct result of staying by his master's side for far too many years. Isaac supports his loyal companion and demands the poor man takes a break for 1 full month. Crimson stains are wiped away as the servant jokes about how the master has no real friends. Sudden anger flashes in his eyes and he threatens to kick the man out for that rude comment. Laughter fills the room as the man mentions surviving dozens of explosions without losing any hair. Nobody as good as this servant exists, but the master warns that one moment can ruin everything. Meditation is mandatory right now because the young master needs some peace before training starts. A warm smile spreads across his face as he prepares to follow the orders of his dear friend. Such a loyal servant says his final goodbye to this life as the heavy door shuts forever. Voices from the past congratulate young Master Isaac as his vision begins to blur with memories. Our hero sits at the head of the table ready to face the heavy burden of his new fate. Darkness consumes the dining hall where fallen figures lie across the floor in a chaotic scene. Someone whispers from the shadows that he finally arrived at the place where it all began. Lucas stares back with cold eyes as a mysterious voice welcomes him back to this nightmare. A mysterious figure stands at the edge of a massive banquet table under a dark and heavy atmosphere. Bloody smears cover his face as he smiles with a chilling look after years of being apart from the young master. Cold sweat drips down his face as he awakens from his nightmare with eyes wide with pure terror. Lucas finally perished after vomiting blood, and the news only reached the boy through his distant father much later. Safety becomes a distant dream as he locks the door as a simple tray of bread slides into his tiny cell. Isolation becomes his only reality in a room where tally marks on the cold wall count the miserable days passing by. Regret consumes his mind under the sheets as he wonders if keeping his distance would have saved those he loved. Dark thoughts haunt him because he believes a colder heart might have prevented all this tragedy from ever happening. Bright memories of a smiling family flicker like a dying candle before the shadows of his prison return once more. Years turn into decades as the pile of stale bread grows higher and the silence of the dungeon grows even louder. Pale and skeletal fingers reach out to grab the only food available to a man who has forgotten the warmth of the sun. Time has carved deep lines into his face as the once young boy slowly eats to keep his fading spark of life alive. Sharp stones help him carve another mark as he realizes that his youth vanished long ago in this dark hole. 30 years of studying forbidden magic and dusty texts have turned him into a master with nothing left to read. Ancient wisdom flows through him as he closes his eyes to let pure intuition guide his tired soul. A deep voice echoes through the void as a legendary journey finally begins for this tired soul. This icy fortress stands as a silent witness to a world where only mana and pure solitude exist. Many years have passed since he first started searching for a way to break his cursed constitution. Dry bread rests in his hands as he wonders if his family is finally falling apart today. Magic stones glow with a mysterious light as he studies the ancient runes spread across his desk. His blue eyes shine with a hidden power despite the countless wrinkles covering his weary face. 71 years of life are carved into the stone wall as he counts every single day of his misery. Heavy boots click against the cold floor and signal the arrival of an unexpected visitor tonight. Someone calls out for his brother from behind the thick wooden door of this dark and damp cell. Jonas stands on the other side and asks if the old man is actually sleeping in this silence. Darkness fills the room since the protagonist wonders what could possibly bring his relative to this place. Sudden shock takes over as he stares at the door with a look of pure suspicion and dread. Tension rises when the prisoner strikes the wall and demands that the conversation stays out there. Both men sit in silence separated by a wall as Jonas prepares to tell a very long and tragic story. Cold chills fill the air once he mentions that today marks the anniversary of their father's death. The old man stares with heavy eyes as he asks about the final moments of his father. Deep secrets hide behind a story so long that it requires a lot of patience to truly understand. His lips curl into a faint smile before he decides to travel 30 years back into the past. Chaos erupted during the brutal succession war where two princes fought for the ultimate throne of the kingdom. Ancient memories flood his mind as the weight of every single decision starts to press against his soul. That sharp blue eye reveals a hidden spark of the powerful warrior who once stood tall among legends. Two young souls sit back to back in a peaceful world that was destined to be shattered by greed. Time vanishes in that dark room because the narrative is simply too captivating for anyone to ignore. A quiet laugh escapes his throat as he mentions how his life could have been spent writing beautiful poems. Grief strikes his heart when he realizes that having only one hand makes a simple life quite difficult. Darkness consumes the figure who finally offers a sincere apology for all the pain caused by his actions. Pressure builds as he clenches his wrinkled hands and prepares to reveal the true feelings of his mother and father. Pure resentment burned like a crimson fire in their hearts for every second they spent away from him. Tears almost break through as he confesses that their hatred was only matched by how much they missed him. Past and present collide in a golden light that finally brings peace to a family torn apart by destiny. Old memories surface as the man speaks with his final breath about a love that survived the darkness. Fresh blood spills across the floor as he coughs and wishes to see a familiar face one last time. Everything changed when a mysterious gate opened and swallowed the entire world into a brutal war. Monsters arrived alongside a radical cult that committed unspeakable acts against innocent people. Regret fills his blue eyes as he realizes that arriving just a bit sooner could have saved everyone. Crimson liquid stains the wooden furniture and marks the spot where a tragic end began today. Stone doors creak open as the master finds his comrade broken and fading in the deep shadows. A sharp blade pierces straight through the man's chest, leaving him with no hope of survival. Pale lips struggle to form words, but the pain is far too great for any more stories. It seems like a total miracle that he managed to stay conscious and speak for such a long time. Solid arms lift the fallen hero as he decides this dark cell is no place for a legend to rest. Heavy boots echo against the stone steps as the weight of a lost life hangs in the air. Every step up the stairs feels like an eternity for the man carrying his brother away from death. Tears stream down his face and his jaw tightens with a rage that will soon consume his enemies. His heart breaks when he notices the body is light as a feather after months of starving in silence. A blinding light marks the end of this dark journey through the cold hallway. Heavy breaths escape his tired lungs as the old man struggles against the freezing winter chill. Each heavy step on the frozen ground echoes through the absolute silence of this destroyed castle. Ruined walls and shattered pillars are all that remain of the glory that once filled these royal halls. That massive beast finally fell, but the cost of victory was far too high for any soul to bear. Cold snowflakes land on his wrinkled palm as he whispers a name to the freezing wind. The master carries his fallen friend and vows to wait for the ice to melt before saying goodbye. Winter stays for a long time, leaving nothing but dead branches against the lonely gray sky. Life returns with a single green leaf and a white butterfly dancing in the fresh morning air. Two graves now stand side by side in the lush grass where the old hero finally finished his task. His fingers grip a glowing blue stone that pulses with an ancient and long-forgotten power. This empty hand prepares to unleash a force that the world has not seen in many decades. Fire erupts from his soul and illuminates the sky with the raw heat of 1,000 suns. He gazes toward the heavens, wondering if his brother can see the miracle he just performed today. The peak of magic belongs to him at last after a long lifetime of waiting for this single moment. He finally holds the blue crystal that cures his weak body after years of secret research. Life slowly leaves his weary limbs as he whispers about finally finding a place to rest. This broken man kneels under the heavy rain, wondering if the gods will ever forgive his sins. Blood stains the floor of the palace and regret consumes his soul for not acting much faster. Total destruction surrounds the castle as he questions if things would be different if he never gave up. An old warrior lies on the grass waiting for the cold embrace of the end to take him home. Soft light blurs his vision as his spirit prepares to leave this broken world behind forever. A familiar voice calls his name and he remembers a servant who died many years ago. Bright sunlight pierces through the curtains and his eyes snap open in a cozy warm room. Fresh air fills his lungs as the young man sits up with a heart beating like a drum. Hans stands right there looking very healthy and worried about his master's pale face. That loyal man limps closer to check if a nightmare ruined the sleep of his precious lord. Confusion hits him hard because this looks like a memory from his youth instead of the afterlife. Swiftly he jumps out of bed and rushes toward the window to see if this world is real. Jonas stares at the beautiful garden and Hans screams for him to get away from the ledge. Blue eyes narrow with frustration as he shouts about being perfectly fine to those around him. A familiar voice echoes through the garden as a young boy hides behind the bright green leaves. Little Jonas waves a tiny toy soldier and sits high on a branch without a single care in the world. Through the glass our hero stares at his younger brother with a face full of pure shock. This energetic child leaps from the tree with his arms wide open even after being told to stay down. Sweat drips down the young man's face, but he forces a small smile as he watches the lively scene outside. His lips tremble as the terrifying realization hits that this impossible moment is definitely not a dream. High within the palace he finally accepts the truth of his miraculous return to the distant past. Massive towers rise above the forest where the protagonist must now face a lonely world filled with infinite mana. All previous memories of failure must vanish as he prepares to break free from the heavy shackles of fate. Magical energy erupts from his body and his eyes glow with a power that will redefine his entire existence. Every fiber of his being feels different now that he has decided to embrace his true potential once again. Maids scramble across the floor to clean the absolute disaster caused by his unstable and dangerous constitution. Vicious rumors spread among the staff, but they have no idea a loyal butler is listening to every word. The head servant prepares to punish the workers for their disrespect as the master watches from the shadows. His hand grips the fabric as the boy tells Hans to stop this madness right now. Those silver eyes drop to the floor since the heavy weight of guilt consumes his entire soul. The young lord turns toward the injured servant and demands the man stay away to remain safe. Silence fills the room as a deep gaze reflects the unwavering loyalty of a man who refuses to leave. Hans drops to one knee and rejects the order because his devotion is stronger than any fear. Kind words flow from his lips as he explains that this darkness is only a temporary shadow. Hope flickers within those bright blue eyes as the promise of a better future starts to take root. A radiant smile lights up the servant's face as he shares a simple truth about the hardships of life. Tragedy strikes like a thunderbolt when a massive explosion turns all that kindness into blood and dust. Regret poisons his heart because every person who showed him love ended up destroyed by his own hand. Memories of a peaceful childhood return as he wonders if this second chance at life is actually real. Through the window he realizes that his only priority is to save Hans from a dark fate. The servant responds with his usual grace, but he has no idea that everything is about to change. Shadows stretch across the room as the young master coldly orders his only friend to vanish forever. Fury erupts in his voice as he screams for the man to get out of his sight before it is too late. His jaw tightens as the weight of the world finally settles on his young shoulders. Those piercing blue eyes look down as he finally accepts the harsh reality of his situation. A tight fist turns white because staying away is the only way to protect his friends. Every step away from his loved ones feels like a heavy burden on his soul. The loyal companion leans on crutches but refuses to let the boy face this darkness alone. Sunlight floods the room as a voice reminds him that trust is the strongest weapon against despair. Pale hands shake as he wonders if those comforting words were just a cruel trick of his mind. The boy strikes his own face to wake up from this confusing nightmare once and for all. Sharp pain spreads across his cheek, proving that this life is a terrifying new beginning. Memories of a cold body lying in the rainy forest haunt his thoughts like an unfixable tragedy. Scenes of a peaceful world remind him of everything lost in his previous life. Destiny no longer cares if this is real or fake because the kid is ready to fight anyway. Determination burns in his gaze since those deadly mana explosions must never happen again. Ancient legends tell of a man named Zeke von Goethe who shared this same cursed bloodline. This 10th class mage was his own ancestor, and his secret records hold the key to survival. Years of research led him to a secret method that might finally fix his broken body. The ultimate key to his survival sits on the table in the form of a blue rune stone. Specific patterns etched into magic stones transform them into powerful tools for any mage. Steady hands are a luxury of youth since his previous life was filled with constant trembling. Mana explosions are a deadly side effect of his unique constitution that forces energy to circulate. Violent waves of energy shatter the internal vessel because the flow is too fast to control. Miraculously, his body restores itself even after a total collapse, as if no damage occurred at all. This cycle of destruction could happen 20 times and still remain a complete disaster for him. Risks are high since the stone intentionally damages the natural path of his mana. Every single stroke of the pen applies continuous pressure to the most fragile parts of his core. The new waterway disperses the violent energy before it causes a fatal explosion. Success was nearly impossible in the past, and he only managed it once before he died. A tiny spark serves as the first real proof that his theory actually works today. Doubt fills his mind as he wonders if this second chance will truly grant him the power he desires. Pure fire erupts from his palm as the breakthrough finally marks the beginning of his legend. A massive pillar of blazing fire erupts from the ground as the protagonist watches in complete disbelief. His blue eyes widen as the intense heat of this unknown power reflects against his trembling face. This boy wonders what kind of insane firepower is actually being unleashed right before his very eyes today. Electric blue energy surges through his entire circulatory system as the ancient magic begins to take hold. Sweat drips down his face because the pressure of controlling such a wild force is nearly impossible to bear. The hero clenches a glowing blue crystal while the burning flames dance wildly in the background of the room. Small sparks ignite on his fingertips as he compares his tiny flame to the massive inferno roaring ahead. Shock fills his mind after realizing that the internal magic waterways have suddenly increased to exactly 3. Triplicate spell casting is finally a reality for this young and ambitious master as he masters his core. Strength flows into his fist, but he knows this small victory is just the beginning of a much harder journey. Our hero stands alone in his study looking at the scattered books and maps to plan his next move. 3 magic pathways are simply not enough to stop the catastrophic explosions that threaten his entire future. More magic must be used frequently to expand these vessels and reduce the lethal burden on his physical body. Safety for others is paramount, so he grips the crystal and decides to walk this path without any allies. Moonlight shines over the silent castle as the lone warrior prepares for the trials that await him in the dark. Hans enters the room with a massive smile as he announces that dinner is finally ready for his precious young master. Fresh wheat bread sits on the tray, but the silver-haired boy coldly orders the servant to leave the room at once. The loyal man ignores the harsh command and begs his master to eat at least one piece of the warm meal before he leaves. A weirdly sappy expression fills his eyes as the attendant stares with overwhelming affection toward the small boy. Flames crackle inside the stone fireplace as the young lord asks about his own age to break the awkward silence. The butler reminds him that he turns 12 this year and explains that boys his age are allowed to act a little spoiled. Everything freezes as the boy prepares to take a bite and suddenly remembers a flavor from his distant past. This specific taste brings back memories of the nanny, and he wonders how long it has been since he last ate her food. Pure joy fills the servant as he watches the child chew the bread, but the atmosphere in the room remains heavy. The young master puts down his fork as he notices that his caretaker was nowhere to be found throughout the entire day. News about a sick child named Hunter comes out of the mouth of the servant as he explains the reason for her absence. His appetite vanishes instantly as he stares at the soup bowl with a look of deep suspicion and hidden frustration. The boy drops his spoon onto the table and asks if she really just left her post to take care of her own family. Such freedom is rare in this world, since most servants would never dream of leaving their master for personal reasons. Intense heat radiates from the fireplace as Hans stands there looking shocked by the sudden change in the mood. Shadows dance across his face as he ponders the dark fate awaiting everyone in this cursed timeline. Fingers tremble against the wooden table as the weight of the coming tragedy starts to sink in. Hunger vanishes as the boy asks if only a child named Hyder is suffering from that deadly pneumonia. Hans keeps a straight face, but his eyes definitely hide the grim reality of the situation outside. Every single child in that small village fell ill at the same time, according to the butler's report. Memories of a past life flood his mind under the pale glow of the crescent moon tonight. This horrific incident once caused the poor nanny to lose her only son to the darkness of the grave. She suffered through endless grief until her final breath after protecting him with a tragic smile. Fate dealt a cruel hand before, but he refuses to let the nanny experience that soul-crushing pain again. Deep down he suspects the cause of this sickness was never a natural disease from the start. Steam rises from the bowl, but the food holds no interest for a man planning to rewrite history. Loyal eyes watch for orders as the tension in the room grows thick enough to choke a soldier. Suddenly he slams his hands down and demands to know which monsters were recently killed in that area. Darkness cloaks the world, but the stars witness the beginning of a plan that will change everything. Somewhere in the frozen forest, a lone deer watches as the gears of fate finally begin to turn. A deer stands still in the dark forest. Suddenly a giant ball of fire erupts from the shadows and flies across the air like a deadly shooting star. The explosion shatters the silence of the night as the creature barely escapes the burning heat of the magical attack. Our hero realizes he missed his target. Flames dance in his palm as he wonders if he actually saw a dangerous wolf or just another harmless animal. Step by step he moves toward his goal. The sign confirms he reached the village. Two men discuss the dark history of the beast that once terrorized every single soul in this quiet place. Hans explains how the Mage Tower even sent experts to buy the creature just to use it for secret research material. Villagers saw a suspicious cart moving through the streets as it carried a heavy load with sharp ice shards poking out. Underneath the covers lay a creature with silver fur that looked like a nightmare born from the deepest part of frozen hell. Ancient records reveal the name of the beast, which is known as the legendary and deadly winter spider. The protagonist learns that these monsters are not strong alone, but they always attack in massive swarms. His gaze turns cold and focused. Mana intoxication is a silent toxin that slowly chokes the life out of innocent people until their bodies finally give up. Deep in the dark forest, our hero searches for a cure under the faint glow of the moonlight. These children of Black Goose Village are suffering from deadly mana poison after the winter spiders attack their home. This young man collects these glowing white flowers and tosses them into his leather bag for the long journey ahead. Most people around here mistake this magical sickness for common pneumonia because true knowledge of mana is extinct. His eyes scan the harvest and he realizes the small amount of medicine should at least stop the pain for a little bit. That leather bag is finally overflowing with fresh herbs that carry the scent of life and hope for the dying. He must obliterate the spider infestation at the root to ensure a total cure for everyone in this cursed village. The strong father figure remains tied to the frontier fortress and fights off monsters in the freezing cold. A worried mother travels across the entire continent as she searches for a way to treat his unique constitution. Time is running out and Hinder might not survive another night if the protagonist decides to just wait for help. Darkness consumes the entire village as everyone hides inside their homes to escape the freezing wind and monsters. One small wooden cabin stands alone near the edge of the woods where a flickering lamp provides the only warmth. Inside the room, a worried woman watches over a small body shaking under the blankets as death comes knocking. Suddenly, a loud sound at the entrance makes her heart jump out of her chest in pure terror and confusion. The wooden door swings open to reveal a mysterious hooded figure who stands like a ghost in the cold night air. Shock fills the nanny as she spots someone unexpected at her door. Silver hair and bright blue eyes belong to the young master who looks exhausted after a long journey. She pulls him inside, immediately wondering what kind of trouble occurred back at the main estate. Her hands gently wipe away the layers of dust covering his youthful face. Silence hangs in the air as those deep blue eyes stare back with a hidden purpose. He tries to step further into the house, but the woman blocks his path with worry. Hinder caught a terrible case of pneumonia, so she fears the boy might fall ill too. A mask goes over his face because he wants to prove that sickness cannot stop him. "Take this bag right now," he says while handing over a heavy sack filled with hope. These herbs must be crushed and brewed twice before the patient drinks the medicine once it cools down. Darkness fills the hallway as he finally approaches the room where the sick boy rests. A pale boy lies motionless on the bed under a thick blanket as the young master watches from the side. Bluish spots covering the skin reveal a truth much more dangerous than any simple human fever. This is definitely mana intoxication, and the protagonist calls out his name to see if he responds. One weary eye opens slowly as the patient struggles to recognize the person standing above him. Isaac looks down at the sick boy and hears a desperate plea not to send a poor mother away. This child coughs and explains how his mother only stayed behind because his body is currently failing him. Blue eyes narrow as the protagonist promises that the woman will stay right where she belongs. A gentle hand rests on the boy's feverish head since she is the only one who sneaks him wheat bread. The master tells the kid to just focus on recovery as the scene shifts toward the vast and bright sky. Deep in the woods, the guide points toward a dark opening and confirms this is the abandoned mine. Our hero checks if this place is truly made of limestone since his target depends on the type of rock. He hands over a gold coin for the directions and tells the nervous man that he will go alone. A chilling warning follows about how people vanish in these parts, but the mage just walks forward. Winter spiders love limestone habitats, and this is the only spot nearby where these monsters hide. Light erupts from his palm before he steps into the darkness to gather his massive mystical energy. Massive gear and a heavy pack weigh him down, but the mage is ready for a hunt most would never survive. New conduits in his mana system allow him to cast 3 spells at once with incredible destructive force. The young man enters the cave and remembers that using too much power could shatter his internal vessel. Every spider inside is still a total mystery, so he decides to save his mana for the real fight. He stops his march as his boots almost crush a tiny plant growing among the sharp rocks. These small blueberries belong to the frost belladonna, which is a very rare find in this region. According to his ancient books, this plant serves as a lethal poison specifically for those winter spiders. The boy picks the herbs and laughs at the irony of a monster living right next to its own greatest weakness. Sunlight bathes the valley as birds fly across the clear blue sky above this dangerous mountain path. His leather pouch is now filled to the brim with the poisonous berries needed for the upcoming hunt. Sharp sensations sting his bare fingers because the potent toxins are already starting to irritate his young skin. His hands check the equipment one last time to ensure that his supply of rune stones is ready for real action. Darkness swallows his figure as he steps into the massive mouth of the cave with a determined heart. Steady footsteps echo against the damp stone walls as the young master ventures deeper into the unknown abyss. Strange lights flicker in the distance and he adjusts his bag while scanning every corner for hidden threats. The hero knows that dying in such a lonely hole would be a complete waste of his miraculous second chance. Our protagonist reaches a steep ledge and realizes that his target is far below in the dark chasm. Ancient wooden beams rest on the rocky floor as he searches for any tools left behind by old miners. A rickety rope ladder hangs over the dark edge and offers a path into the terrifying depths of the nest. Sweat drips down his face as the young mage prepares himself for the most dangerous climb of his entire life. Strong fingers grip the rough rope tightly since one single slip means a fatal fall into the dark abyss below. Each heavy step up the rickety ladder brings him closer to the source of the evil energy lurking inside the mine. His boots finally hit the solid stone floor as he enters the silent heart of this terrifying mountain. Fresh air is a memory now as he tries to steady his heart before facing whatever monsters hide in the dark. Those piercing blue eyes widen in pure shock after noticing something absolutely gruesome spread across the cavern floor. Countless bones litter the ground like a graveyard for every creature that ever dared to enter this cursed place. These mummified remains show that the victims were completely drained of every single drop of their vital fluids. Isaac picks up a human collarbone and realizes that the local missing people met a truly horrific end here. Sadness fills his heart as he wonders if these poor souls ever had a chance against such a ruthless predator. Sharp clicking sounds echo through the tunnels as a massive leg emerges from the deepest shadows of the cave. Every instinct in his body screams of danger since the predator slowly crawls toward its next unsuspecting meal. Hot mana surges through his arm as a bright ball of fire ignites to illuminate the darkness of the tomb. The boy crouches low with his flame steady to scan the walls for the monster that rules this underground world. A monstrous spider lunges forward, but a powerful explosion of fire meets the beast with absolute destructive force. He knows these creatures fear the light, so he surrounds himself with a ring of blazing fire to keep them away. Everything stays quiet as our hero remains on high alert for the massive swarm that could emerge at any moment. Young Isaac pulls his mask tight as he prepares to execute a plan that requires precision and courage to survive. Those special blue herbs sit inside the basket ready to be transformed into a weapon against the deadly winter spiders. Dark silence fills the cave as the boy kneels to focus his mind before starting the dangerous process of burning herbs. His eyes sharpen with a deadly intent as he realizes that one small mistake here could cost him everything he worked for. One steady hand reaches toward the basket to trigger the magical reaction needed to lure the monsters out. Bright flames consume the plants and release a thick cloud of magical smoke that will soon fill every corner of the mine. Green mist swirls through the air like a ghostly snake as it carries the scent that these creatures find irresistible. Red eyes glow in the deep shadows as the spiders begin to stir after smelling the source of the intoxicating aroma. The long wait is finally over and the young master whispers that the real hunt is about to begin inside this darkness. A piercing gaze reflects the icy blue light as the protagonist prepares to unleash the true power of his magic pathways. Sunlight streams into the massive library where he spends hours studying ancient texts to find a way to change his fate. This man grips his pen while wondering how things ever got so bad in his previous life before he decided to take control. Today he stares out the window to reflect on the distance he traveled and the dangerous road that lies ahead. A brave villager stands before the powerful lord as the guards warn him to watch his tongue in the presence of royalty. Anger consumes the man because he wants to know why the ruler failed to protect his own citizens from the recent disaster. Loud shouts about Black Goose Village reach the ears of the young master as he watches the chaotic scene from his window. Disinterest fills his gaze since the constant noise from outside is starting to ruin his absolute concentration on magic. Perhaps boarding up the massive windows with heavy wooden planks will finally grant him the silence he needs today. Hidden deep within his mind lies a plan to move his entire operation underground to escape the presence of other humans. Solitude seems like a perfect dream for someone who needs zero distractions to finish his research on unstable mana cores. Ancient books reveal a rare mineral called dimagitrium which might be the ultimate solution to his explosive problems. This unique material possesses incredible magical durability and can easily withstand the force of a massive energy surge. A soft smile plays on his lips as he asks Hans for his opinion on this expensive new plan to reinforce the room. Only absolute silence answers his question because the massive study is completely empty and devoid of any life today. Empty shadows stretch across the floor as he stares into the distance without seeing his loyal and familiar companion. Truth hits him like a cold wave once he remembers that Hans is no longer standing by his side to offer any advice. Bright sunlight floods the massive office where the young master sits alone, surrounded by mountains of forbidden knowledge. Sharp ink flows across the parchment as his hand records every single secret that will eventually change the fate of the world. The quill moves rapidly across the paper as he records every single detail of the secret magic he learned in the past. His eyes narrow with a cold determination that only a man who has lived 80 years in total could possibly possess. Concentration flows through his veins as he meticulously plans out the exact ingredients needed for his upcoming battle. Surrounded by massive towers of ancient knowledge, the young master prepares for a war that only he knows is coming. Eerie green mist drifts through the frozen cave as the poisonous air signals the presence of the deadly winter spiders. Deep inside the dark cavern, he kneels beside a small pot while the weight of his equipment rests on the cold stone. Even now, those haunting memories of his previous failure keep popping up like ghosts to fuel his current fire. These monsters fall one by one because the frost belladonna worked exactly as he planned during his long research. Thick smoke rises from the flames to paralyze every single creature before they have any chance to strike his body. Safety remains a priority since the mage is not immune to the toxic fumes spreading rapidly through this dark mine. Brilliant blue light erupts around his torso as he uses pure mana to cleanse any stray toxins from his own lungs. Simultaneous casting allows him to generate a condensed fireball that creates a lethal perimeter around his small camp. Triple magic layers combine with phase alteration to create a perfect storm of absolute destruction against his enemies. Utilizing 3 mana circuits at once is known as the legendary multi-circuit technique that very few can master. With a final look of cold indifference, the young genius points his finger to finish the job and says his goodbyes. A massive pillar of fire erupts from the ground as the ancient mine finally shatters under his intense magical pressure. Isaac walks through the blazing inferno without a single trace of fear as his scarf protects him from the toxic smoke. Those piercing blue eyes scan every corner of the dark cave, searching for the source of this legendary monster infestation. Every single winter spider in the vicinity starts charging toward the center like a swarm of mindless and hungry beasts. Our hero notices the strange behavior of the creatures and realizes that a water source must be hiding nearby. His steady footsteps echo against the burning floor as he moves deeper into the cavern to find the queen of the hive. Massive rocks crumble into dust under the heat while the structural integrity of the cave begins to fail from the raw power. Burning air fills the room and he realizes that the thick smoke will eventually suffocate him if he stays here too long. Success depends on speed, so he decides to finish this mission before his mana or his lungs finally give out on him today. Sharp ice shards hang from the ceiling like frozen daggers, ready to fall upon any intruder who dares enter this sanctuary. A floating orb of fire illuminates the dark grotto where a massive pool of deep blue water waits in total silence. Freezing winds bite at his skin and he instantly regrets leaving his heavy winter coat back at the village entrance earlier. The temperature drops so fast that every puddle on the ground transforms into a sheet of solid and slippery ice. Something unusual catches his attention as he looks up toward the jagged ceiling of this massive underground chamber. Thousands of glowing blue eggs cling to the rocks like a disgusting carpet that will soon hatch an unstoppable army of spiders. Hundreds of pulsating blue eggs hang from the ceiling as the boy realizes a massive queen must be nearby. Sharp ice shards suddenly rain from above while his blue eyes widen at the imminent danger. Massive thuds echo through the dark cavern as the ground shakes under the weight of an unseen titan. Cold sweat drips down his neck because something ancient and hungry is definitely watching his every move. Thick clusters of translucent pods dangle from the jagged rocks like a nightmare waiting to hatch and consume him. Burning mana ignites in his palm as he prepares to illuminate the shadows with a single scorching flame. With a swift motion he launches the fire into the abyss to reveal whatever is lurking in the freezing silence. Orange light streaks through the narrow tunnel and reveals the terrifying scale of this underground labyrinth. Darkness swallows the flame, instantly leaving him alone with nothing but the sound of his own heavy breathing. Fear starts to crawl up his spine as he senses a murderous presence closing in from the ceiling above. A monstrous creature with glowing red eyes descends from the shadows to finish the intruder once and for all. Total terror fills his gaze when he sees the massive size of the predator that was hiding right over his head. Gravity pulls him down as he desperately lunges away from the sharp legs of the beast to avoid a fatal strike. His body crashes against the frozen floor with a heavy impact that knocks the air straight out of his lungs. Every muscle in his body aches since the terrifying feeling of imminent death never truly changes across his two lives. Suddenly a massive monster emerges from the shadows as the terrifying Winter Spider Queen reveals her true form. This legendary beast resists fire and emits a chilling cold that freezes the very air around the young master. Sharp legs strike the ground like deadly spears as our hero barely dodges the initial wave of the brutal attack. The boy leaps back with grace and prepares a flaming counterattack against the massive creature blocking his path. A massive explosion of fire erupts against the hard shell of the monster and shakes the entire cave to its foundations. Smoke clears to reveal that his powerful fireball failed to burn this icy monarch like the smaller spiders from before. Luckily, this giant predator moves much slower than its agile children, but the threat remains just as lethal today. Dizziness hits him hard as the strain of using advanced magic starts to take a heavy toll on his immature body. His 12-year-old body feels the heavy weight of exhaustion after pushing past every natural limit tonight. Giant legs loom over him like pillars of death as the protagonist catches his breath for one final desperate stand. Strange thoughts begin to drift through his mind as he stares into the abyss of his own fading consciousness right now. Memories of the delicious wheat bread Hans served earlier today suddenly fill his heart with a strange sense of warmth. Wheat never grows in these frozen northern lands, so every single bite was a miracle provided by his devoted nanny. That kind woman traveled to distant cities every week just to find high-quality wheat for the boy who hated rye bread. A soft smile touches his lips as the realization of her deep love gives him a reason to keep fighting this monster. Thinking of a warm reward, he promises to demand a fresh batch of bread as soon as he returns home. His small flame flickers against the damp walls as he prepares to face the monsters lurking in this frozen abyss. Fear has no place in his heart because even a monster queen is just another insect waiting to be crushed tonight. Blue light erupts as a heavy bag strikes the beast with enough force to shatter the silence of the cave. Shards of ice fly everywhere when the hidden monster finally reveals its terrifying form under the magical pressure. Cold eyes of the beast reflect the impending doom as the ancient predator prepares to defend its frozen territory. Our hero lunges forward with incredible speed to strike before the creature can even process his lethal movements. Sharp blue energy dances around his face as he focuses every single drop of mana into his next devastating blow. Metal meets carapace in a brutal collision that sends shockwaves through the dark and narrow tunnels of the mine. Green liquid sprays across the cavern walls as the winter spider lets out a deafening screech of pure agony. This young master puts his entire soul into the strike to end the suffering of the village children once and for all. Massive force pushes him backward across the frozen floor, but his boots find traction against the slippery terrain. Fingers grip the cold surface with desperate strength to ensure he does not lose his footing in this chaotic dance. Screams echo as multiple enemies surround him, but the boy stands firm against the overwhelming tide of death. Teeth clench in a display of pure determination, since giving up now would mean losing everything he loves again. Failure is not an option because his remaining mana reserves are far too low for another massive fireball today. Long-range attacks are useless against this ice monster, so he decides to switch tactics for a more lethal strike. Small sparks dance in his palm as he generates a flame that feels completely different from anything he used before. Powerful energy compresses into a tiny sphere of blue heat as he forces his core to condense the mana one more time. Blue light reflects in his eyes as he maintains a steady focus to prevent the unstable power from exploding early. Every ounce of his strength goes into a final desperate lunge to finish the terrifying beast with a single direct hit. Pure destruction pierces through the hard shell of the monster as the concentrated mana finds its mark instantly. His teeth clench with the effort of holding the spell steady against the massive resistance of the dying creature. Crimson flames and blue energy erupt in a violent explosion that consumes the spider with an agonizing scream of pain. Shockwaves from the blast shatter the frozen ground as the giant spider finally falls under the weight of his power. Panic hits him when he realizes his arm is stuck inside the burning carcass and his muscles refuse to move at all. Dark energy coils around his limb as he wonders if the poison of the beast is already starting to rot his young flesh. Relief washes over his soul as his hand finally breaks free from the dead body and he falls back onto the cold earth. Silence returns to the cave as the hero lies motionless next to the smoldering remains of his formidable opponent. Exhaustion takes over his body because the cost of using such forbidden magic was nearly higher than he could pay. A mysterious blue gem falls through a sea of magical energy as if it carries the weight of 1,000 ancient secrets. Pure mana radiates from the crystal surface as the intense blue light illuminates everything within this dark and cold void. Dizziness hits him like a heavy hammer as the world slowly starts to regain its shape in the middle of a silent room. Familiar voices whisper in the dark hallway about how the young master vanished from the mansion without telling a single soul. Anxiety fills the face of the loyal servant who wonders why his master decided to enter that dangerous and abandoned mine. Tears almost fall as the nanny explains that even the village hunter has no idea where the brave boy actually went tonight. Victory was achieved against the Spider Queen, but the cost of the battle was a heavy blow to his head on the rocky ground. Sunlight fades over the quiet village as the exhausted hero finally spots his worried friend pacing at the front entrance. Fatigue finally wins the battle and the child collapses into the warm arms of his faithful butler before the world goes black. One blue eye opens to the sound of good news confirming that the sick child is finally cured thanks to the risky mission. Emotional warmth fills the butler's chest as he realizes that a truly golden heart hides behind that cold and stoic mask. Red stains his cheeks as the young master pulls up the covers because he hates being the center of so much attention today. Joy replaces the heavy fear on their faces once the boy finally sits up and looks around the humble and cozy little bedroom. Half a day passed in total silence since his tired body recovered from the insane strain of using those 3 mana pathways. Furious worry erupts from the nanny who cannot believe the reckless boy is still trying to act like a perfectly tough adult. This young noble sits on the bed and tries to hide the truth about his dangerous journey to the abandoned mine. Young Hinder sleeps peacefully now because the herbs from the forest worked a total miracle on his health. Secrets must remain hidden, so the boy decides that nobody should ever find out about the mana poisoning. Scholars would surely flock to the village if they discovered the mountain of dead spiders inside that dark cave. The nanny looks surprised and wonders how a small noble child learned more about medicine than a royal doctor. Our hero ignores the difficult questions and decides to head back home before the snow blocks the mountain paths. That empty mansion represents a massive risk and he knows his loyal butler might face some heavy punishment. Suddenly the kind woman offers a heavy basket filled with bright red fruit to show her deep gratitude. Villagers sent these delicious apples to thank the young master for saving their children from a painful death. His fingers grip the shiny fruit as he realizes that even the smallest gesture can mean everything to these people. Orders are given for the nanny to stay home another week since the sick child still needs plenty of time to rest. Fear fills her heart because the head chamberlain is a very strict man who hates when servants neglect their duties. Confusion takes over the room once the boy reveals that this extra time off is not just a simple vacation. Isaac lifts the apple high and demands that the woman uses this special gift to create a sweet and delicious jam. The boy takes a big bite and requests some fresh wheat bread to enjoy alongside the treats upon her return. Tears well up in her eyes as the nanny realizes that her precious young master is truly back. Our hero holds up a bright red apple and suggests making a delicious pie to celebrate his return. Moonlight washes over the small cabin as the promise of a warm meal brings peace to this cold night. Blinding sunlight pierces through the clouds and signals a new chapter for the boy who cheated death. High above the mansion garden, a tiny figure sprints across the stone tiles with relentless speed. Heavy breaths escape his lungs as the young master pushes his physical limits to the absolute edge. 7 full days pass in the blink of an eye since he started this grueling training routine. Sweat drips down his face while he notices a massive shift deep within his magical core today. Those 3 initial mana circuits suddenly expand into 4 distinct pathways of pure mystical power. Stability returns to his broken vessel and allows him to cast 4 spells at the exact same time. Hard work pays off because he runs every single morning to prepare his small body for the coming war. Magic requires intense calculation and a sharp mind that can only function with peak physical health. This young child realizes that his current form is far too weak to handle such a massive mana load. Ancient memories resurface of a time when a loyal friend helped him train with a wooden training sword. That familiar smile of Lucas remains the only light in a past filled with shadows and lonely nights. He grips his chest because the weight of his secret mana burden feels heavier with every passing second. Suddenly a familiar voice breaks the silence as the head chamberlain approaches with a very serious expression today. 2 men stand at the entrance to announce that the time for his regular medical checkup has finally arrived. Schiller stands beside the personal physician as the young master prepares himself for a very boring afternoon. The doctor bows politely and asks how the young noble is feeling since his last visit to the massive estate. Father assigned this man because he is a famous doctor in the neighboring lands, but he lacks true mana knowledge. Hands press against his shoulders as the physician claims the boy looks much healthier than he ever did before. Isaac watches with a cold gaze as the man decides to change his daily medication based on a complete misunderstanding. Metal latches click open, then the doctor reaches into his leather bag to reveal a very special gift for his patient. 6 vials of glowing purple liquid sit inside the case, and the man calls this legendary medicine the panacea. Our hero holds the glass bottle and realizes his father spent a fortune to ensure he had the best treatment available. Common people call this a cure-all drug, and soldiers use it as a powerful stimulant to boost their stamina during war. Ancient scholars made a massive translation error because the word actually means to stimulate rather than stabilize the mana. This purple liquid is pure poison for a body with wild mana, but our protagonist sees it as a perfect training tool. Such a dangerous catalyst will help him expand his circuits faster, so he dismisses the medical team with a polite nod. Steady footsteps echo against the stone floor as the young master finally returns home after his secret journey. Someone waits for him in the courtyard with a piercing gaze that seems to read every single one of his hidden thoughts. Schiller adjusts his glasses and notes how quiet the boy has become compared to his usual chaotic and loud behavior. Memories of a spoiled child who used to scream at everyone flash through the mind of this stern and aging head butler. Every doctor in the territory used to run away in fear because dealing with such a wild temper was simply impossible. Silence falls over the courtyard as the old man prepares to reveal a secret that might change their relationship forever. Word reached his ears about the miracle at Black Goose Village, where many dying children suddenly found a second chance. Isaac wonders how the truth leaked out so fast until the butler admits that poor Hans could not keep his mouth shut. That dangerous secret could trigger a massive political storm if the advisory council ever learns about his forbidden actions. Fortunately, the head chamberlain decides to ignore the rules this time, since the results were actually quite impressive. Cold air brushes against his neck as the elder leans forward to deliver a final warning in a very low and hushed voice. His stern eyes show no emotion as he reminds the boy that maintaining a perfect image is the only way to survive here. Such a legendary servant always felt like an unreachable wall, since he never allowed anyone to see his true human heart. Maids stand in a perfect line as the most rigid man in the mansion walks past them without even a single glance today. Suddenly a gloved hand reaches for the heavy suitcase as the butler offers a surprising bit of help for his young master. Schiller stops the boy and insists on having a serious conversation about these dangerous secret trips. Memories of a dying brother reveal that this loyal butler remained by their side even after the family fell into ruin. This man protected the Goethe legacy with his very life until the final collapse of their once glorious noble house. Our hero smiles gently as he realizes that even the strictest servants have hearts filled with pure kindness and warmth. A sharp gaze from behind those glasses shows a man who dedicated every single second to the service of this powerful name. Sunlight sparkles over the garden fountain as the butler wonders why his young master is training his physical body so hard. Those brilliant blue eyes reflect a deep wisdom that no child of his age should ever possess in this peaceful world. Every legendary mage who reached the 5th circle knows that a strong vessel is required to hold such massive amounts of mana. Schiller observes the prodigy with a mixture of pride and confusion, since the boy acts like an experienced war veteran. Ink flows across the parchment as the butler records the miraculous events that recently saved the poor village children. Reports confirm that the young master single-handedly cured the sickness which baffled every local doctor and scholar today. His report suggests that the boy should pursue alchemy, since his unique constitution makes traditional magic far too risky. With this news, the Count will finally find some peace knowing his son has a bright future as a brilliant researcher. A sudden knock at the heavy door breaks the silence of the room as the butler grants permission for someone to enter. One of the maids cautiously steps inside to deliver an urgent message that might change the flow of their quiet morning. The stern head chamberlain stares down at the maid since she keeps bringing up the same troubling topic today. Rosa looks completely distressed as she tries to explain that something feels horribly wrong within these castle walls. Diligent workers like Annette never miss a single day of work, yet they all seem to vanish into thin air lately. Tears well up in her eyes because she truly believes her friends would never just abandon their duties like this. Dark visions of a captured woman haunt her thoughts as she fears a terrible fate has already claimed another innocent soul. A mysterious man leans in with a smirk and asks if anyone else finds this sudden string of disappearances quite odd. 3 maids vanished in only 2 months, and everyone knows that the Goethe estate is a very dangerous place to survive. Dangerous monsters and freezing weather are common here, but the blue-haired girl wonders if the man plans to escape next. Enette worked tirelessly to afford medicine for her sick father, so leaving without a single word makes no sense at all. Bill laughs mockingly and suggests the girl simply grew tired of taking care of her dying father in that small house. Rage flares in their eyes after he claims she probably ran off with some random guy to start a secret new life elsewhere. This arrogant servant tells them to keep quiet before he reveals a dark theory that explains every single disappearance. His lips curl into a sinister grin as he prepares to drop a bombshell that will chill their very bones tonight. Ancient purple runes glow around a terrifying skull as he whispers the forbidden words of black magic to the group. Such a massive castle belongs to a family of powerful mages, so dabbling in the dark arts seems like a logical conclusion. Dark shadows loom over the bed where the first young master lies in a state of absolute and total misery. Rosa gasps in pure horror after hearing that innocent young girls are being sacrificed alive for some dark and twisted ritual. Bill smirks like a true villain and dares the maid to stop him from spreading these terrifying rumors about the master. Anger flares in the eyes of the loyal servant because she knows the Lord is a kind man who even gave a criminal a second chance. Steady footsteps echo through the courtyard as the protagonist arrives to catch the traitor right in the middle of his lies. Isaac looks majestic and dangerous as he crosses his arms and demands to hear the rest of this interesting story. Beads of sweat drop down his face as the man confesses that everything began exactly 2 months ago in this cursed land. First, a maid named Hilda vanished into thin air without leaving a single trace behind for anyone to find. Then Clara disappeared, followed by another girl who went to the church and never returned to the mansion. Sunlight floods the study where Isaac sits like a true king, waiting for the truth to be revealed by this suspicious man. His piercing blue eye narrows as he asks the servant if he has any idea why these girls are suddenly vanishing one by one. Fear grips the man's heart because he never expected a 10-year-old child to have such a heavy and suffocating aura. This young lord promises total immunity as long as the man tells the absolute truth about what is happening here. Tension fills the air when the master wonders if all this chaos is actually happening because of his own presence. Laughter escapes the man's throat because it is quite obvious that the master is the center of this nightmare. Memories of the loyal Hans bring a heavy weight of guilt because that man was always covered in painful bruises. Regret fills his mind for making jokes about a peaceful death since his previous life was nothing but a total nightmare. Fear consumes the informant and he begs for his life as he stares into the cold blue eyes of the young master. This man claims he has a family and a second chance, so the protagonist asks if he truly wants to avoid his end. A chilling smile creeps onto Isaac's face as he offers a simple deal for the terrified man to serve his interests. Panic turns into total submission as the target realizes that his life now belongs to this powerful silver-haired boy. Stars shine over the quiet mansion as the protagonist prepares to summon a force that should remain hidden from the world. Intense blue flames erupt into the air and illuminate the dark room with the raw power of his unique magical energy. He sits alone on the edge of his bed and finally recalls the names of those who stood by him during his darkest days. Visions of Rosa and Enette flicker within the blue fire as the memories of the old timeline start to surface once more. One finger points toward the sky as he reconnects the scattered pieces of a puzzle left behind by his previous death. Recognition sparks in his eyes because he finally remembers the faces of the only people who stayed until the bitter end. Those 2 loyal maids volunteered for service only after the tragic loss of Hans and his beloved nanny in that timeline. Shattered glass litters the expensive carpet as a mysterious purple liquid spills across the room in a chaotic mess. Crimson blood drips into the puddle and the young lord coldly orders his servants to leave him in absolute solitude. "Get out," he screams as the red-haired maid trembles in fear after seeing his sudden outburst of pure rage. Glass shards scatter across the cold stone floor since he refuses to drink another drop of that useless purple potion. The terrified servant begs the young master not to lose hope despite the darkness that seems to consume his broken heart. Hope is a word that tastes like poison to a man who lived through 70 years of absolute misery and deep regret. Cold words drop to a chilling whisper as he asks if they truly understand the weight of killing a precious friend. Silence fills the room until the brown-haired maid finally steps forward with eyes that hide a very dark and painful secret. Enette looks him directly in the eyes and confesses that she also ended the life of someone she once called a friend. Shock washes over the young lord as he realizes that he is not the only soul carrying a heavy burden of blood. Regret fills her gaze as she remembers a time long ago when things were different for everyone in this cursed mansion. She wonders if reaching out just a second sooner could have saved a girl named Clara from her tragic and lonely fate. Polished boots click against the stone floor as the realization of his own cruelty starts to sink into his tired mind. This brave woman stands tall and reminds him that anyone can find themselves doing something they never truly wanted to do. Blue eyes soften for the first time as the protagonist listens to the wisdom of a servant who knows his pain. Gold eyes pierce through the shadows while she explains that everyone faces a moment where their heart finally breaks. Blood stains his pale skin, but the honest words of Enette provide a strange sense of comfort to his tortured soul today. Isaac looks at his hands and regrets not asking more questions during his previous and lonely life in that cold dark cell. Knocks on the heavy wooden door break his deep train of thought as the shady servant Bill announces his arrival tonight. Those elegant white doors hide a world of secrets that only a master of magic and a traitor could truly understand. Bill enters the room with a report about the missing maids and claims that finding the truth was actually quite easy. Shady beggars at the crossroads provided every single detail needed to confirm exactly where those innocent girls went. Blue eyes lock onto the man as the young prodigy demands to know the final answer to this disturbing mystery. Ruthless slave traders are the ones responsible for tricking the women with false promises of a better life in the South. Curiosity fills the boy as he wonders why they need a middleman, but the servant just laughs at his perceived innocence. A long trip to the southern lands requires a massive transport system that no normal maid could ever afford. Mercenaries must protect them from bandits as new identity papers are needed to live as free citizens in a new city. Three vulnerable women stand together hoping for a miracle without realizing they are walking straight into a deadly trap. Our hero nods slowly because the logic behind this dark human trafficking business finally starts to make perfect sense. Arrogance fills the man's mind since he believes this little kid has no idea how cruel and greedy the real world can be today. Shock flashes across the servant's face when he notices the child is much more composed than any normal 12-year-old boy. This greedy servant makes a sly gesture and claims that all the travel money is gone because information is very expensive. Isaac looks at the man with pure disbelief because spending 20 silver coins in one day is absolutely insane. Those sharp blue eyes scan for lies since people are usually way more suspicious than they appear at first glance. Bill laughs like a maniac and praises the young master for such legendary generosity after receiving his heavy payment. Documents rest on the wooden table as the protagonist reveals that he has one more special task for this greedy man. A mysterious smile crosses his face as he offers a proper cut of the profit for anyone brave enough to take this job. Hook, line and sinker, this fool falls for the trap instantly because his hunger for easy money blinded his common sense. This idiot thinks a silver tongue is enough to make a killing and treats his young master like a golden egg-laying duck. Risk and reward are the only things on his mind as he promises to guide the boy toward a mysterious broker tonight. Laughter fills the air as Bill dreams of becoming rich since high risks always lead to the highest possible returns. Reality hits him like a ton of bricks as the greedy servant wakes up inside a dark and damp prison cell without his clothes. Dust and cobwebs cover a human skull in the corner, proving that very few people ever leave this dungeon alive. Fear makes his legs tremble as he realizes that his shortcut to wealth just led him straight into a terrifying trap. Loud screams fill the hallway as the man grips the bars and wonders how his plan turned into a complete disaster. Our hero stands in the shadows holding a glowing blue crystal and watches his new toy with a look of pure satisfaction.